Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Dirshu Mishnah Berurah here. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Hey. We are in Siman Tov Kuf Tes Vav. We begin today with Sif Dalid on the bottom line of Kuf Lamed Zayin Amid Aleph. We'll be learning today Miras Hashem Taf Kuf Lamed Zayin Amid Beis. Hopefully, over the next several days, I'll get in a couple of double shiurim. I'm sorry that I missed Thursday night. I said share Wednesday morning. But Thursday was a travel day. Baruch Hashem, I had a simcha in Cleveland, and now we're back. So hopefully this week we'll gain some ground. In any case, now we begin Siman Tav Kuf Tes Vav Sif Dalid, bottom line, Kuf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. Says the Mechaber, Eina Yehudi She'evi Dairin Li Yisrael, a non-Jew who brings a gift to a Yid, doesn't mean necessarily a gift, or it could be that he's bringing items for sale to a Jewish community. And he brings them, continues the Mechaber, Midavarim sheyesh b'minam b'mechuber. He brings produce of which that sort of produce is still attached to the ground. So to use the example we've been using until now, he brings a nice bag full of apples, and in the area where we are, the apple trees, the apples still by and large are on the trees. Or like the Mishnah Berurah points out, instead of bringing produce, maybe he brings livestock that is mechusar tzeda. So let's say he brings some freshly caught fish. B'yontav rishayin shel Rosh Hashanah, and he brings this gift on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. Shechal lihiyos b'chamishi b'Shabbos. Rosh Hashanah fell out on Thursday and Friday, so you have a 3-day Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah, and the non-Jew brings this gift on Thursday, on the first day of Yom Tov. Now, let's step back for a moment. We know that we've learned the halacha until now. If the non-Jew brings something that's either mechusar tzeda or it's something that's yesh b'minai b'mechuber on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are considered a yuma arichta. It's one continuous day. It's not two separate kedushas. It's one kedusha. And therefore, if the non-Jew brings it on the first day, the item that the non-Jew brings is asur for both days of Rosh Hashanah, even according to the Mechaber. If you remember, we learned previously, if we're talking about Shnei Yomim Tovim Shel Golius, if we're talking about 2 days of Yom Tov, let's say the first 2 days of Pesach or the first 2 days of Sukkot, so then according to the Mechaber, if the non-Jew brings a gift on Yom Tov Rishon, the gift is also on Yom Tov Rishon, but it becomes mutter matzah Yom Tov Rishon after the time of Chdei Sheyaseh. But it's mutter on Yom Tov Sheni. The Ramah brought down the Shita that's Machmir. The Ramah said that it's asur for both days of Yom Tov, for the first day of Yom Tov and the second day of Yom Tov, and it's asur until after B'chtei Sheyasa on Matzah Yom Tov Sheni. So we had that machlokes. But even according to the Mechaber, who holds that it becomes mutter Matzah Yom Tov Rishon, not so by the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. The 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are Kedusha Arichta, it's a Yuma Arichta. Therefore, if the non-Jew brings the gift on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, even according to the Mechaber, it doesn't become mutter Matzah Yom Tov Rishon. It's only mutter after Matzah Rosh Hashanah, after the second day of Rosh Hashanah, after B'chtei Sheyaseh. That we already learned previously. Now the Mechaber is addressing a slightly different case. Over here, we're talking about the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah fell out on Thursday and Friday. So now the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are followed by a third day of Shabbos. In that case, says the Mechaber, Yesh matirim la'achlam b'Shabbos b'chdei sheyasu. There are those shitas who learn that the apples become mutter matzah Yom Tov. So they become mutter matzah Rosh Hashanah. Matzah, the second day of Rosh Hashanah, after the Zman of Chdei Sheyaseh, Friday night, and then mutter Friday night and Shabbos. V'yesh oisrim, and then there are those that disagree and hold no, that these apples are asur not only throughout Rosh Hashanah, but they continue to be asur throughout Shabbos, and they become mutter after B'chtei Sheyaseh Matzah Shabbos. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah. So the Mishnah Berurah says over here in Kuf Lamed Zayin Amid Beis, Ois Katan Lamed Gimel, Midvarim sheyesh b'minam b'mechuber. The case that the Mechaber is addressing over here is a case where the non-Jew brings, let's say, apples that are still on the trees. So that means if he brings them on Thursday, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, the assumption is that the non-Jew picked them on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. So there's a Meleches Hisar problem over here, amongst other problems. There's a muktzah problem. There's a meleches iser problem. The non-Jew did malacha. He picked the apples on behalf of the Yid that he brought the gift for. Says the Mishnah Berurah, "V'hu adin midvar mishem chusarin tzeda." This is not only true by apples that have to be picked from the tree. It would also be true by something like fish that are mechusar tzeda, that have to be trapped. So the trapping would be a meleches iser on Yom Tov. And he brought them, says the Mishnah Berurah, Iskat Lamadalad b'Yom Tov Rishon shel Rosh Hashanah. He brought them on Thursday, the first day of Rosh Hashanah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, V'loy nakat Yom Tov shel Golius. The Mechaber is not addressing a case here of a simple Shnei Yomim Tovim shel Golius, the first days of Sukkot, so the first days of Pesach. Why? Da'azer l'shitase b'Sef Aleph, because the Mechaber is following his opinion that we saw previously in Sef Aleph, the Hutar afilu b'Yom Sheni. The sheet of the Mechaber was, if a non-Jew brings apples that he picked on the first day of Yom Tov, they become mutter matzah Yom Tov Rishon, after B'chtei Sheyaseh, and they're not even also on the second day of Yom Tov. That's why over here the Mechaber is addressing a new case. He's addressing a case of 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, even the Mechaber holds that the apples would be also until Matzah Rosh Hashanah, until Matzah the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Now he's addressing a case where that even is followed by Shabbos. Yesh matirim lachlam b'Shabbos, Eis Katan Lamed Hey. There are those that hold that the apples will become mutter Friday night after B'chtei Sheyaseh. So the non-Jew brought the apples on Thursday, the first day of Rosh Hashanah. They're also Thursday. They're also Thursday night. They're also Friday, the second day of Rosh Hashanah. They become mutter Friday night after B'chtei Sheyaseh. Now, the question that the Mechaber the question that the Mishnah Berurah is going to address over here, the chiddush he's going to say is, okay, what are the potential problems that we have here? We have a potential problem of meleches iser. The guy ostensibly, assumedly, picked these apples on Thursday. So he performed aser malacha on the behalf of a Yid. All right, so that's why the apples are also on Thursday, and they're also Thursday night. Because we're dealing with Rosh Hashanah, they're even also on Friday. Now you want to be mad them Friday night after Kadesh Sheyaseh. Well, how about the problem that the guy did forbidden malacha for you on Thursday? Well, we have to be mad that somehow. But then we also have another problem. We have the muktzah problem, but the muktzah problem isn't such an issue, because even though these apples were muktzah on Rosh Hashanah, the Isser of muktzah does not continue on Shabbos. If something was muktzah ben hashmashas when Rosh Hashanah began, the Isser of muktzah is going to remain in place for the entire Rosh Hashanah, but the Isser of muktzah does not roll over into Shabbos that follows the Rosh Hashanah. But we have another problem. How about hachana? We mentioned this problem earlier. Here we have a hachana problem. The fact that the guy picked it on Yom Tov, so okay, you didn't use it on Thursday, you didn't use it on Friday, but if you want to use it on Shabbos, that means l'chayra that Rosh Hashanah was meichin for Shabbos. And we know that Yom Tov is not allowed to be meichin for Shabbos. So what do we do with the hachana problem? So the Mishnah Berurah says over here, this shita that holds that the apples become mutter Friday night, they hold the lo yamrinan hachana mishnei yamim mikaydim kiyim miyom echad. We don't answer something because of hachana. We don't say that the fact that the non-Jew brought it on Thursday was meichin not only for Friday, but it was meichin for Shabbos, that's 2 days later. We don't recognize the act of hachana that was done on the first day of Yom Tov, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, on Shabbos, which is 2 days later. And assumedly, even though the Mishnah Berurah doesn't say this straight out, we also have to say that the fact that the guy did forbidden malacha on your behalf on Thursday somehow doesn't answer it Friday night after B'chtei Sheyaseh. Now take a look at Mishnah Berurah's Kat Lamed Vav. You're going to wait Friday night according to this shita until after B'chtei Sheyaseh. Says the Mishnah Berurah, it's very strange how B'chtei Sheyaseh on Friday night helps for anything. Hagam de b'Shabbos le'shayach asiyah. The guy picked the apples on Thursday. Now, why do we usually wait until after B'chtei Sheyaseh? Because what we say is the non-Jew performed forbidden malacha for you on Yom Tov. You can't gain any benefit from the forbidden malacha that he did. So you have to wait until after Yom Tov. But not only do you have to wait till after Yom Tov, you have to wait after Yom Tov for the Zman of Kadesh Yeyaseh. You have to wait until there's enough time after Yom Tov that the forbidden malacha could have been performed after Yom Tov. So then you say, I'm not getting any benefit from the fact that the malacha was performed on Yom Tov. I waited after Yom Tov for an amount of time that the malacha could have been performed beheter after Yom Tov. So now if I go take the apples, I'm not getting anything from the fact that it was plucked on Yom Tov. I waited enough time after Yom Tov that it could have been plucked after Yom Tov. But over here, we're talking about Friday night. Friday night, they're not allowed to pluck apples. Friday night plucking apples is also usher. So how does it help that you wait after B'kdei Sheyaseh on Friday night? So says the Mishnah Berurah, Hagam de b'Shabbos l'Shayach Hasiyah, even though Friday night plucking the apples is just as usher as it was on Thursday, Mikamakam lo adif, still in all, we can't be matter eating the apples earlier than K'dei Sheyaseh, because lo adif, we're not going to say that Friday night, when malacha continues to be usher, is somehow more kuladik. Me'ilu ikla yom chayil achar Rosh Hashanah. What the Mishnah Berurah is saying is, let's say Rosh Hashanah was Monday and Tuesday, and the non-Jew picked the apples on Monday. If you want to eat those apples, you have to wait until Maseh Rosh Hashanah, until Tuesday night, after B'kdei Sheyasu. So now that Rosh Hashanah is Thursday and Friday, what do you want to do? You want to make it even more kuladik? You want to say that if Rosh Hashanah was Monday and Tuesday, you would have to wait till Tuesday night after Kadesh Yeyaseh. But now that it's Thursday and Friday, now you don't have to wait until after Kadesh Yeyaseh, because Kadesh Yeyaseh doesn't accomplish anything. That doesn't make sense. Therefore, according to the more kuladik opinion, who's going to allow you to use the apples on Friday night, you have to wait until after Kadesh Yeyaseh. Now, why are you allowed to use the apples at all? Why aren't we worried that you're getting the benefit of Asr Malacha? The only reason you're eating these apples on Friday night and on Shabbos is because they were plucked, they were picked on Thursday when it was Asr to pick them. So again, it seems that since this Malacha was done on Thursday, even though we look at Rosh Hashanah as being a Yuma Arichta, so Thursday and Friday are one day, since the malacha is 2 days removed from when we're enjoying the benefit, the malacha was done on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. Now Rosh Hashanah is over, and it's already 2 days later, and it's already Shabbos, which is a different level of Kedusha. It's a different type of Kedusha. Now, according to this Shita, we're allowed to enjoy these apples. I don't have a more in-depth beer than that of this Shita. However, as Katan Lamed Zayin, that was the more kuladik opinion, but there's also a more chamerdik opinion. There are those that say that the apples remain usher not only Friday night, but they remain usher through Shabbos. Taimam, their rationale is to Kevin the Kaimalon Ba'alma Dishtei Yamim Taivim Shal Rosh Hashanah Kiyum Arichta Damya. Since we always look at Rosh Hashanah at the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah as being a Yuma Arichta, have a Kiyam Echad L'fnei Shabbos. So then, really, this is 1 day of Yom Tov. It's as if Yom Tov was Friday, and now comes Shabbos. So it's like 1 day of Yom Tov before Shabbos. Well, the day is according to this opinion, even if the non-Jew didn't do malach on your behalf, even if we're talking about apples that fell off the tree on their own, or fish that got trapped on their own, it would also be Asr on Shabbos, and it would become Mutter Motzei Shabbos. Why would it be Asr on Shabbos? The reason it would be Asr on Shabbos, even though the guy didn't do forbidden malacha, is for several reasons. It would be also because of Muktzah. Well, Muktzah, no, I mean, take that back. The Isser of Muktzah wouldn't transfer from Rosh Hashanah to Shabbos, but it will be Asr because of Hachana. You have Yom Tov being Meichin for Shabbos, so it would be Asr. But that Isser, you don't have to wait until after Kadesh Yeyasu on Matzi Shabbos. That Isser goes off as soon as Shabbos is over. Okay, that was the Mechaber. Now says the Ramah, Hago. According to us, according to the Ramah, who mentioned earlier in Sif Aleph on Kuf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph, the Ramah said that we're machmir when it comes to 2 days of Yom Tov. We're machmir, and we hold that if Yom Tov is Monday and Tuesday, and the guy brings you apples on Monday, we hold that those apples are usher on Tuesday as well, until Matzah Yom Tov, until after Kadesh Yeyasu. And if you remember, the Mishnah Berurah said that the reason for the more Chamerdik opinion is because the more Machmerdik opinion has a different problem. They hold that the apples have to be also on Yom Tov Sheni, because if the apples would be mutter on Yom Tov Sheni, it could be that the person who the non-Jew picked the apples for, next year he'll ask the guy straight out, do me a favor, pick apples for me on the first day of Yom Tov. I know I won't be able to eat them on the first day of Yom Tov, but they'll be mutter on the second day of Yom Tov. So because we make that gzeira, the more Chamerdik opinion says that the apples have to be also even on the second day of Yom Tov, and the Ramah said that we should be machmer like that opinion. However, but that chumrah only pertains to the person that the apples were brought for. It doesn't pertain to somebody else. Says the Mishnah Berurah over here. Let's read the Ramah again. So the Ramah said, according to us, that we take on the opinion of the more Chamerdik opinion, when it comes to this machlokes of the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, Thursday and Friday, we should also be machmer to asa the apples until Motzei Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cutting lamed ches. Dina hachi. Ritzayna loymar. Diyesh bazeh gam shnei dayes hanal. The same way we took on the more machmerdik opinion in that machlokes, we do over here too. For rak yesh bazeh nafkamina. The b'shtei yamim shel Rosh Hashanah. In our case over here, where we're talking about the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah preceding Shabbos, also b'Shabbos ladasa oisrin afilu noshrin ne'aleim mishum iser hachana. Over here, in this case, we're being machmir in this din of Rosh Hashanah on Thursday and Friday. The apples will be aser until Motzei Shabbos, even if they fell off the tree by themselves, because of the iser of hachana. We're looking at the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah as being 1 day, so we can't eat the apples on Shabbos because the 1 day of Rosh Hashanah was meichin for Shabbos, even though it really happened on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. But we look at the first 2 days as being 1 day. So we can't have the day of Rosh Hashanah doing Hachana for Shabbos. So even if the apples fell off the tree by themselves and there's no question of Malachas Isser being done by a non-Jew, still the apples are also. But when it comes to the 2 days of Yom Tov, we said earlier, let's say you had 2 days of Yom Tov, Tuesday and Wednesday, and the apples fell off the tree on Tuesday. So over there we said, if the apples fall off the tree by themselves, or the non-Jew picked them, but he didn't do it for you, he didn't do it for a Yid. So it's no question of Malachas Isser, then mutter b'maitzah Yom Tov rishon miyad kanal b'siv beis. Then even the opinion that's more machmer normally on 2 days of Yom Tov. Again, let's get this straight. By 2 days of Yom Tov, Monday and Tuesday, we had the machlokes, the mechaber, and the Ramah. The mechaber said, a guy picks apples for you on Monday, they're mutter on Tuesday, they're mutter Monday night after B'kdei Yasa. The Ramah said no, they're also throughout both 2 days of Yom Tov, they're also until Motzei Yom Tov Sheni, until after B'kdei Yasu for the person that they were picked for. But how about if the apples fell off the tree by themselves? If the apples fell off the tree by themselves, then they become mutter Motzei Yom Tov Rishon, even according to the more machmerdik opinion. Why? Because this kind of hachana memela, we don't say that the first day of Yom Tov can't be making for the second day of Yom Tov. We say Maman of Shach. If the second day of Yom Tov is Kaddish, then the first day was Chayil. If the first day was Kaddish, then the second day is Chayil. So in that case, even the more machmerdik opinion in the 2 days of Yom Tov holds by Nashru Me'alein that the apples become mutter Motzei Yom Tov Rishon. But over here, by the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, the Mishnah Yomim Shel Rosh Hashanah also b'Shabbos l'dasa Yisrael afilu nashrin me'alein mishum Yisrachana. According to the machmerdik opinion in our case over here of the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah preceding Shabbos, over there, even if the apples fall off the tree by themselves on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, they're also until Motzei Shabbos because of Hachana. Because the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are 1 day, and Rosh Hashanah can't be making for Shabbos. But when Yom Tov, Shnei Yom Tovim Shel Goliath, Monday and Tuesday, if the apples fall off the tree by themselves on Monday, even the more machmerdik opinion holds that the apples become mutter Motzei Yom Tov Rishon, because Hachana is a non-issue from the first day of Yom Tov to the second day of Yom Tov, from Yom Tov Rishon Shel Goliath to Yom Tov Sheni Shel Goliath. When it's this kind of Hachana, it's Hachana Memela. Okay, says the Ramah weiter. Aval b'shtei yomim tovim shel golius yesh lahakol b'shabbos shehu la'acharein. If you have 2 days of Yom Tov, if let's say the first 2 days of Sukkot are Thursday and Friday, followed by Shabbos, then you could be mekel and you could be matter the apples already on Motzei Yom Tov Sheni. This is only true when you're talking about something that's edible right away. It doesn't need any hachana on Yom Tov for Shabbos. But let's say the guy brought you fish, so then fish, they're not edible until you cook it. Apologies to those sushi eaters. It needs to be cooked. Then aser. It would even be aser b'tiltal on Yom Tov Sheni unless you need it for guests. Let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says over here. It says the Mishnah Berurah is cutting lamed tes yesh lahachmer b'Shabbos or tzayin elomer kedasa oisrin lamaylo. Right? The Ramah said that when it comes to the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah followed by Shabbos, we're machmir. Vayin b'tay shekasa b'shem Rashal the Motzei Shabbos mutar b'yad ve'in tzarich b'chdei sheyaseh. The Taz brings down a marshal and says that even though we're machmir when Rosh Hashanah is Thursday, Friday, and we answer the apples throughout Shabbos, but you don't have to wait until after Kadesh Yiyaseh, they're mutter immediately on Motzei Shabbos. Ava b'chedusha Rabbi Akiva Eger hisig alav the marshal ari klal b'shtei yom tov Rosh Hashanah. He says that that's not what the marshal meant. The daitei de b'shtei yom Rosh Hashanah tzarich lahamtin b'motzei Shabbos Kadesh Yiyaseh. It's cut mem. But said the Ramah that when 2 days of Yom Tov Sheni shel golius, so if you have, let's say, Sukkot is Thursday, Friday, followed by Shabbos, then we could be makel, we could be matter the apples and Motzei Yom Tov. We could be matter them for Shabbos. Yesh lahakol b'Shabbos shehu la'acharein. Why? Because really, what was the reason of the more machmedika opinion we had earlier by Shtei Yom Tovim shel golius? Because we're afraid that if we're matter the apples on Yom Tov Sheni, then next year the Yid is going to ask the guy to pick apples for him on Yom Tov Rishon. But now we're talking about when Yom Tov is Thursday and Friday and then Shabbos, and you want to be matter the apples on Shabbos. You're going to be afraid that next year the Yid is going to ask the non-Jew to pick apples for him on the first day of Yom Tov for Shabbos. The next time is a 3-day Yom Tov. Now we don't have to be choshish. The loigazrin and shema yerma la'akum Yom Tov Rishon shu shnei yomim kaidem Shabbos la'avian b'Shabbos. V'alkein mutar b'leil Shabbos la'achim k'dei she'yasu. V'o'adin imchal shtei Yom Tovim shel golus v'yom Rishon v'sheni v'o'akum hevi loy b'Shabbos shemutar lechel b'Yom Tov Rishon be'erev achim k'dei she'yasu. Now, the Ramah said that this heter, that we could be makel on the 2 days of Yom Tov, regular Yom Tov Sheni shel golius before Shabbos, that's only when you have something that doesn't need any hachana. Let's say the guy brought apples on the first day of Yom Tov. He brought apples on the first day of Yom Tov Sukkot, and that was on Thursday. Now you want to eat the apples on Shabbos, you could be makel. Apples don't need any hachana. But if he brought fish on Thursday, that needs hachana, then you have to be machmer. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cutting mem aleph shetzarich lahachin pirush. Kigoin dagim, let's say fish. Shetzrichim bishul, you have to cook them. Or b'Shabbos also lavashlam, and obviously on Shabbos you can't cook them. Or b'Yom Tov Sheni nami yev shel lavashlam. Now you can't cook them on Yom Tov Sheni either. So Sukkot was Thursday and Friday. The guy brought you fish on Thursday. You need to prepare them for Shabbos. Now you can't prepare them for Shabbos because you can't cook them on Shabbos, and you can't cook them on Yom Tov Sheni either. Now, Yom Tov Rishon, obviously, you can't cook them. Anytime a guy brings you something, it's aser by b'yom. Anytime a guy brings you apples or freshly caught fish on either the first day of Yom Tov or the second day of Yom Tov, they're definitely aser for that day. They're muktzah and there's meleches iser that the guy did. So you couldn't cook the fish on Thursday. You also can't cook the fish on Friday. Why can't you cook the fish on Friday? You can't cook the fish on Friday because they're muktzah. Says the Mishnah Berurah sharei muktzim. They're muktzah. Vasurin, afilu Yisrael acher. Even for a yid that they weren't brought for. Im loishen is damnu loy archim v'chanal. The Ramah gave us a heter earlier in the Siman that if we have guests and we need the fish for the guests, So it's not that I need it for me myself that the guy brought it for. I need it for other people. L'tzarich Yom Tov. Then he gave a heter. Then he said we could be mekel. But like this, they're muktzah. V'after l'tzarich archa mekalinon. Even though we're mekel to allow you to use it for guests, mikamokom chalalayim shem muktzah. They're still considered muktzah. Calls mandaloinus dam deloy archim. So you can't cook the fish on Thursday. You can't cook the fish on Friday. So then he's cutting members. Then they're also on Shabbos. When we come mokim. You could ask a non-Jew to cook it for you. Obviously, there can't be a problem with Bishul Akum. But Erev Shabbos, you could cook them on the second day of Yom Tov, Erev Shabbos, through the agency of a guy. Because the whole Isser Tiltal of these fish at Yom Tov Sheni is a chumrah. This is only true if you happen to have other fish in your house to cover Shabbos. On the second day of Yom Tov, and obviously you would have to have an Erev Tavshilin. Okay, very complicated stuff. Siv Hey. Davar she'ein b'minoi b'mechuber. Let's say the non-Jew brings you apples, but all of the apples have already been picked from the tree. The apple season is over. So we're not going to assume that the guy picked the apples at Yom Tov. Ve'ena mechusar tzeda. Or he brings you livestock, that's not mechusar tzeda. He brings you a chicken. A chicken is generally speaking not considered to be mechusar tzeda. He had it in his chicken coop in the backyard. Incidentally, I just did a shechita this morning. I had a bunch of chickens in my backyard. It was time to thin the herd. So I just checked it. 2 chickens this morning. I have some nice, beautiful, freshly geschachten and freshly kashered chicken in my refrigerator that will be a big covered Shabbos. There's nothing like a soup that's made with freshly shechted chicken. You got to try it sometime. Shabbos Alman, you hear that? You got to try it sometime. Okay, so davar she'ein b'mina b'mechuber ve'eina mechusar tzeda. In bami tarichat tchum, if you know that the non-Jew brought it from within the tchum, mutar l'koil, it's mutar for everybody's use. There's no problems over here. There's no malacha sisser. There's no problems. On muktzah, there's no anything. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut mem gimel davar she'ein b'mina. You could go into heavy anach b'peris yeveshim. Or let's say a guy brought you dried fruits. Obviously, they weren't just picked. The chanal b'siv gimel. I cut mem dalad ve'eina mechusar tzeda. Could go in avazim like geese, v'tarnagoyim, or chickens of gai gavna. Mem hey, if he brought them, we didn't do that yet. So that's if it came from within the tchum. Then boyu michutz l'tchum. But on the bottom line here in the mechaber. But if they came from outside of the tchum, then it's aser ba'achila for the yid that the non-Jew brought it for. He brought it from outside the tchum on Yom Tov. It's aser for the guy that he brought it for because he brought it from outside the tchum on his behalf. It's aser for the one that was brought for and all of the people that are dependent on his household, all of the members of his household. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut memhei michutz l'tchum. If this stuff, these apples or these chickens, were outside of the tchum ben hashmashas when Yom Tov began, it's also ba'achila l'mishuhuva b'shviloy. It's cut memvav u'benachmi shevi peris l'ir sherubi Yisrael afilu mistama. And let's say this non-Jewish produce salesman, he brought apples from outside the tchum to the Jewish village to sell them. They're also ba'achila to everybody in the town because it's assumed he brought it for all the townspeople. Also lukulam, adaita lukulam hevi, lukaman sivav, memzayin ulachal b'nei beisai, and it's also ba'achila for all of that person's household members. The mistama adaita lukulam hevi, sheyadei she'ena balabaisai kalavada. He knows that the yid Yankel isn't eating alone. He knows Yankel is eating together with the rest of his family. So that means that when he brought it for Yankel and his whole family. So it's also ba'achila for all of them. Ola inyan archim. How about Yankel's guests? If these are guests that always eat by Yankel's table, then everybody would agree that those guests are considered b'nei beisai of Yankel. And even if these are guests that he just happened to invite, there are those that are machmir and would prohibit it for them. But if he invited the guests after Tony already brought the apples to his house, then yesh lahakol then you could be mekel. Okay, we're going to stop over here. Mir Hashem, tomorrow we will pick up on the top of Kuflam Chesam and Aleph by the word in the Mechaber Avol. Thank you so much for joining me for Limud HaTorah. The discuss of Limud HaTorah should stand ganz Klal Yisrael in good stead. The Rebbe Shem should send Yeshua's Refuas. The Rebbe Shem should be Megan and ganz Klal Yisrael in this continuing Eis Tzara. We all have to be Mispal. The Rebbe Shem, who's a native, should take away all the tzaras from everybody quickly. And we should be Zocher to the Geula Shleima, Meher V'Yameinu. Be well.